Alrighty, guys. So, like I said in the agenda video, I want to record today and I want to talk a little bit about today about the system of mercantilism. Um, we are going to be playing a simulation tomorrow and Wednesday that is going to help us, hopefully, to better understand mercantilism. So, in order to take and play that game, we kind of have to understand how mercantilism worked and why it was around and what it did and all of that. So that's what I want to talk about today. So taking a look at these set of slides right here, the mercantilism presentation and simulation slides, we got to start off with kind of an understanding of the relationship between the colonies and England when the colonies started. So in the early 1600s and all the way into the early 1700s, England really kind of kept its hands off of the colonies and really kind of ignored the colonies. England looked at the colonies and wasn't really too worried about what laws the colonists created, what governments they created, so long as they didn't think that those governments and those laws overruled the king's laws and the king's rules and all of that stuff. But if they made laws to govern themselves to make their lives easier, the king didn't really care. Neither did Parliament, neither did the government of England. Um, all that the king and all that Parliament really cared about is that the colonies would make them money and make them rich. And the way they would do that is the colonies would send England raw materials, and in return, finished goods would travel back to the Americas, to the colonies, and the colonists would buy those goods, making money for businesses in England. That's all that the British cared about. As far as whatever else went on in the colonies, so long as there was not a war or a rebellion, and so long as England was making money, the colonists could govern themselves and live their lives however they wanted. And that view of governing and that view of allowing that kind of that way of allowing the colonists to do whatever they wanted is known as salutary neglect. It's one of your key terms. It was one of your key terms, but it basically means so long as the colonies were making England money and as long as they weren't causing any problems, England didn't really care what the colonies did. Now, going to the next slide really quick. As time goes on, as the 1600s progress and you get to the early 1700s, mercantilism and that system of using raw materials and then selling finished goods to the colonies is going to take and become a more relevant economic system and really kind of the way that England is going to make money and gain wealth and power. And they are going to be more strict about following those mercantilist rules and stuff like that. So let's take a look real quick. There's a couple of things that mercantilists actually believe. They believe that countries had to export more goods than they imported. So you need to take and sell more things than you buy. To maximize trade, they supported building ships for trade, funding a strong navy, and fighting other countries to maintain control of the seas. So you need to be the biggest, baddest trading power in the world in order to be the most powerful, and anybody else, you need a strong navy to put down anybody else that's going to try to take your crown, basically. Mercantilists also believed that they should collect raw materials from the colonies. Those raw materials were then manufactured to support the export trade. And what it means by export trade is taking those finished goods and selling them to mainly the colonies as well as other countries and stuff like that. So the process of selling goods, of taking those raw materials, creating finished goods, and then turning around and selling those finished goods is what is making England money. And they are using the colonies to not only get those raw materials, but then produce those, to sell those finished goods. I'm sorry, guys, to sell those finished goods too. And that's what's making England money. And that is what the system of mercantilism is, taking all the raw materials from the colonies, not really allowing them to trade with anybody else, and forcing the colonists to buy your finished goods to make you more money. That's what the system of mercantilism is. And we can see this in the system of trade known as triangular trade. You can see here the two prongs. The first prong, all of the raw materials, rice, silk, indigo, tobacco, sugar, molasses, wood, whale oil, lumber, furs, all of that goes to England. England takes all of those raw materials, turns them into finished goods. Oil to be used for lamps, ships, furniture, stuff like that, and then turns around and sails it right back to the colonies and sells it to the colonies. Now, there are other products that are sent to Africa to trade for slaves, and then slaves are shipped to the colonies to produce more of those raw materials to then ship back to England so they can create those finished goods, those manufactured goods, and sell them back to the colonies for a profit. So that is how that whole system works, guys. The colonies provide raw materials. England takes those raw materials and makes finished goods out of them, and then they turn around and sell those finished goods to the colonists for a profit. And that is going to be how England is going to make money, and that is how the system of mercantilism works. Now, England is going to do a couple of other things to try to take and strengthen their hold on the colonies. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to create the Navigation Acts. And the Navigation Act said two things. The first thing that the Navigation Act said was that colonists are required to sell sugar, tobacco, and cotton to the British. They absolutely have to. There is no choice. They have to sell to the British. The other thing that it said was goods bought by colonists from other countries had to go through Britain so Parliament could place a tax on them. Another way for England to make money on goods that are being brought into the colonies. Okay? So England is trying to get every dollar it can out of raw materials and manufactured goods and things like that, and the things that colonists buy and sell and all of that. That is also part of the system of mercantilism. Okay? And then in 1699, Parliament creates what are known as the Restraining Acts. They prevent the colonists from selling any finished or manufactured products. This prevents any competition with British goods that are coming into the colonies and being sold. They had to be purchased from England. Any finished goods, any products have to be purchased from England. This way, there is no competition with businesses or merchants in England selling and producing their finished goods. So this is a way for England to make the most money it can and make the largest profit it can. So that is how mercantilism works. That is what the system of mercantilism is. Okay? So we're going to skip a second, and I'm going to show you guys this today, and I am going to take and go over this tomorrow and Wednesday. What we're going to do is that mercantilism game I was talking to you guys about. It's going to be all about trading raw materials and finished goods for gold bars. And you guys are going to see what I'm talking about and see kind of what I mean when we get into the simulation tomorrow. But ultimately, your main goal is to have the most gold bars you can possibly have. And like I said, we're going to get into the rules and stuff like that tomorrow and Wednesday. But that's how that simulation is going to work. That's what we are going to do, and that's kind of how we're going to work that simulation and all of that. So I'll talk to you more about that simulation tomorrow, but that is the system of mercantilism. System of mercantilism is meant for England to get all the raw materials at a very cheap price, make those finished goods and finished products out of those raw materials, and then turn them around and sell them to the colonists who have to buy them, and which will earn England a profit. So that's the point. That's the idea behind mercantilism. So that's all I have for today, guys. That wraps up what I wanted to talk about today. We'll go over the rules of the mercantilism game tomorrow, and then we'll get a chance to play it. All right? If you have any questions, feel free to send them my way, and I'll get back to you as quick as I can, guys. With that said, have a fantastically awesome day. I'll catch you guys tomorrow and Wednesday. Have a great day, guys.